The shipping people between themselves say if it was not for shipping, half the world would freeze and the other half would be hungry, would starve.
How many people are prepared to lower the standards of living for the environment?
We might be reaching to a point of no return, meaning that it's not only what we do, but how fast we do it.
Sorry. 1 year ago, I came to Davos and told you that our house is on fire. I said I wanted you to panic. I've been warned that telling people to panic about the climate crisis is a very dangerous thing to do. But don't worry, it's fine. Trust me, I've done this before, and I can assure you it doesn't lead to anything.
Shipping is one of the worst climate killers. Engines on the high seas run on crude oil. When it gets burned, even more pollution is created than with diesel.
Ships generally use some of the heaviest, least refined fuel on the market.
The container vessels, tankers, and cruise ships that sail our seas are also giant polluters, and scientists say it's not just marine life that's being put at risk.
Good morning, Mr. Lim. My name's Margot Gibbs. I'm a journalist, and I was hoping to talk to you about your work with the IMO to limit global shipping emissions.
This is heavy fuel oil, the fuel that ships use for their operations. It is the dirtiest transport fuel ever imaginable. They do not pay any taxes for using this fuel. As a result, the impact on the emissions, the impact on climate change is through the roof. Using dirty fuel is not expensive.
Would you mind telling us like, how do you feel right now?
I don't think I will be able to describe it.
I can still smell it, it's true.
Yeah. Can you give me 1 second? Maybe we can even actually open the window to air a bit. You can call it folks being in charge of the hen house. IMO is such an organization for shipping. It is under the full influence of a shipping industry, and historically speaking, it has a very poor track record when it comes to the environment.
O fuel óleo pesado é o lixo que sobra da produção de gasolina e gasóleo. Estes resíduos não tinham utilidade até que a indústria petrolífera encontrou o transporte marítimo. É o mais sujo dos combustíveis. Emite CO2, carbono negro e outros poluentes que causam doenças respiratórias e aquecimento global. Em 2020, os navios ganharam um novo fuel óleo com menos enxofre. Esta nova variante é ainda 100 vezes mais suja do que o gasóleo dos carros e também emite carbono negro.
Shipping industry can switch to cleaner diesel overnight. They do not need to change the vessels, they do not need to change anything. They just need to bunker cleaner fuel.
Vivo muito próximo do terminal e comecei-me a sentir doente e fiz uma associação com o tráfego dos navios que estão em constante funcionamento, têm as chaminés o tempo todo a funcionar e sentia ardor nos olhos, ardor na garganta e na respiração. Tive que ser acompanhada por um pneumologista. Os navios que passam no Tejo têm, para muitos, uma visão romântica, mas que têm um impacto muito grande na nossa saúde.
No caso dos navios de cruzeiro, quando chegam a porto, são verdadeiras cidades flutuantes que têm de estar a funcionar enquanto aqui estão paradas. E, portanto, eu tenho que queimar fuel óleo, que apesar de ter menos enxofre quando está em porto, acaba por ter um impacto muito grande em termos de partículas ultrafinas, que são aquelas que mais facilmente penetram no nosso organismo. Quando nós temos um terminal tão perto de zonas residenciais, obviamente essa é uma fonte de preocupação enorme.
I'm a researcher and I'm retired and I work as an epidemiologist and I was oncologist and technician in terms of public health research. And my hope is to understand the cause of the disease. We can see that the mortality is very different and is stable. That is a very strange and very also impressive situation. The mortality, for instance, in this area, in this area, in this area, or around the harbor here, so are stable. So we can see each year for all the population in the mean, the mortality is higher than expected.
When you show this data to local authorities, what is the reaction?
They don't want to see. They don't want to see. I think that so the authority are are strongly connected with the business, with the harbor business that is very rich also.
Assolutamente unica. We are the masters of the sea.
One thing that is more difficult for us is to share our city with the port. The value that we have are not enough to balance this risk, because it's about the air that we breathe, and it's about damage that probably we will discover in the future.
It's a long work because it's also difficult to understand whose the fault is. It's like, obviously, the ships, and it's a national problem, but we are the local, and so it's not so easy to fight it.
We cannot treat shipping favorably as a favorite child. They also need to make their effort. The European Union has today 27 member states. We call it 28 member states, and the last member state is actually shipping. The sector is so big, its emissions are so massive that you can treat it as a country. You cannot have zero carbon continent by forgetting one member state. Otherwise, the efforts made elsewhere will be undone.
As mesmas substâncias nocivas que causam problemas de saúde nas cidades portuárias causam aquecimento global. As alterações climáticas, tal como o transporte marítimo, são um negócio global. Se esta indústria fosse um país, seria o 6º maior emissor de gases com efeito estufa do mundo, libertando mais de 1.000 milhões de toneladas todos os anos, sobretudo de CO2. Estas emissões provêm de cerca de 50 mil navios, sendo os maiores responsáveis os navios de cruzeiro e os cargueiros. Nefastas para a saúde das populações locais, as emissões dos navios podem ainda ser piores para o ambiente em locais como o Ártico.
My name is Marissa Potisat. I'm 19 years old. I moved to Svalbard because of my parents. They got jobs here, so they thought that it would be a great idea to move me to the North Pole. So that's why I'm here. I've been living here for 13 years, right? And my first birthday I celebrated in Svalbard. was September 19th, 2007. And there was snowing outside in the window, and I saw it was like a lot of snow. And now, my birthday, it's just like no snow whatsoever. And that's like a very obvious change for me. I enjoyed summer. It was like 20 degrees outside, and people were wearing sundresses and sandals and went to the beach and were bathing in the water. That's never happened before. It's my first time bathing in summer in Svalbard. It's kind of shame, guilty pleasure maybe. Then you realize that this is too warm. This should not be like this.
What we're seeing in the Arctic is that environmental changes are happening about twice as quickly as in other parts of the world. And that's a process that we've called Arctic amplification. Black carbon is something that we call a short-lived climate forcer. And it's part of a larger group of compounds that have a short-lived climatic effect in some way. When spreading soot on the snow, it darkens, and so the radiation from the sun is going to be absorbed. And when that radiation is absorbed, it gets transformed into heat.
%90 of world trade is carried by shipping.
Transportation by sea is the most efficient way of transportation.
About 20% of all goods which are carried by Greek ships, which, you know, for a small midget country like ours is quite a big achievement.
Shipping carries 90% of the global freight, and it accounts less than 3% of carbon dioxide emissions.
We are like the taxi drivers of the world.
You have to consider ship owners as the lorry drivers.
The ship owners don't build ships, don't manufacture engines, do not produce bunkers themselves.
Do you ask the lorry driver to improve his engine, to modify, or to have a small refinery on board in order to improve the fuel?
Now you have discovered black carbon and you think black carbon is going to save the world. No. The real problem, the scientists will tell you, is the CO2. This is causing the global warming. The other greenhouse gases are minor byproducts in minor quantities. The financial burden of using gas oil instead of fuel oil, yes, it would be better, but it's not value for money.
Once we see that black carbon is damaging overall, maybe the solution is to say we have to put appropriate filters in the stack to keep the black carbon from getting into the atmosphere.
To go immediately to diesel by changing huge parts of the engine, pumps, valves, the systems, might be possible. But instead of doing that, they opted for the high sulfur and low sulfur solution. This, in my opinion, was a mistake, a grave mistake.
If the world trade expands, we need more ships, we need more bunkers. We need, at the end of the day, ships will produce more CO2.
The shipping industry is not well understood by the EU.
The reason that we have a very cheap Japanese or Taiwanese or Korean TV set or refrigerator in our house is part also of the cost efficiency of shipping. The transportation cost is minimal, but this is not understood by the public. They take it for granted.
every country is going to IMO protecting also their industries and their interest. It's natural and it's a fact.
There is opinion, including some scientists, stating that the Greek delegation at the IMO is mostly trying to block new regulations for the environment and pushing for delays. Do you think there is such a case?
Do you know of any industry that likes to speed up and promote new regulations? I think there is hardly no such business. The Greek government does what the Union of Ship Owners tells them to do.
Are you? We took over your office, I'm sorry.
No problem, no problem.
And in 99% of the cases, this is a good thing. Do you believe that there is one politician in the world who really cares about the environment?
It's important to have an interview with you because you're the minister in Greece responsible for shipping and...
The most important.
Yes. The what?
The most important minister worldwide.
If it's the biggest...
in terms of shipping.
Yes, I mean...
At least in terms of EU.
Do you agree that the European Union can regulate on shipping?
IMO is the only global regulator of international shipping.
But are you going or are you not going too slow for the urgency that is there?
IMO is moving very fast.
How Greek is the Greek shipping industry?
100%.
We want to show you something.
This is an interview we did with Mr. Laskaridis, Mr. Panos Laskaridis.
No.
Okay. This you need to understand well. People who are in shipping don't need the Greek government, don't need the ministry, don't need the IMO, don't need the Prime Minister. They can sit on the Prime Minister. They have no need of the Prime Minister. Why? Because shipping has nothing to do with Greece. There is nothing that a ship owner will gain from Greece. No cargoes to Greece, no contracts from Greece, nothing in Greece. Only his office is here. 80% has foreign flags, but they don't care about the Greek flag.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on this?
The Greek government has formed a stable institutional framework for the Greek shipping industry in order to have such a huge progress over the past decade.
So what I found out is a number, that is how many taxes do shipping companies on average pay. The tax rate of the shipping industry seems to be around 7% of their profits. And then there are certain sectors where this is particularly low. The cruise sector, on average, their tax rate is 0%, basically.
Muitos países utilizam um imposto sobre a tonelagem. Como funciona? Vejamos o exemplo do navio MSC Preciosa. O navio é detido por uma empresa britânica, tem bandeira do Panamá e é operado a partir do Reino Unido e Itália. O Preciosa não paga impostos sobre os lucros, paga um montante fixo com base no tamanho. Em 2018 e 2019, o navio lucrou 44 milhões de euros, mas pagou 36 mil euros de imposto, uma taxa de 0,08%. Em comparação, em Portugal os contribuintes e empresas teriam pago milhões.
If you pay less taxes than a normal company would pay, you could consider that a tax subsidy.
Up to now, the shipping sector did not have to do anything on climate, and now European Parliament has, with a very broad majority of all political groups that are part of governments in the member states somewhere, have agreed to say ships will have to pay for their emissions. Thus, the most dirty ship, the most polluting ships, the most inefficient ships will be pushed off the market.
A Organização Marítima Internacional, a OMI, anunciou um corte de 40% na intensidade de carbono até 2030 e de 50% em todas as emissões até 2050. Em novembro de 2020, traiu esse plano. Pediu soluções não vinculativas de curto prazo. Alguns cientistas fizeram contas e descobriram que se o transporte marítimo não tomasse medidas, as emissões aumentariam 15% até 2030. E com o plano da OMI, as emissões aumentarão 14%, só menos 1% do que não fazendo nada. A indústria de navegação precisa de reduzir as emissões, mas a OMI não está a pedir isso. Parece que esta nova OMI mais verde não é diferente da antiga.
In the past, when there were calls like ours, like citizens, that we need to regulate shipping, member states would always come forward, and shipping industry would come forward and say, there is an international regulator, IMO, they should be in charge of it because shipping is global, only global regulator can regulate it. Which we came to realize that was just an excuse for doing nothing.
So the two things that shipping needs to do are first maximise energy efficiency and crystallise a lot of opportunities that it has to make further efficiency improvements. And then the second thing is to substitute its current fossil fuels with an alternative. And in our research, we think that alternative is most likely to be a hydrogen-derived fuel. So not necessarily hydrogen, but something which is made synthetically, and a new set of ships built or the existing ones retrofitted. The pressure and the change has to come from elsewhere than the IMO for the next 5 years, because we are locked in at the IMO at the moment to a very low ambition energy efficiency improvement this decade.
"2020 is on track to be one of the 3 warmest years on record globally, even with the cooling effect of this year's La Niña. The past decade was the hottest in human history. Ocean heat is at record levels. In the Arctic, 2020 has seen exceptional warms, with temperatures more than 3 degrees Celsius above average.
Good morning, Mr. Lim. Hi, Mr. Lim. My name's Margot Gibbs. I'm a journalist, and I was hoping to talk to you about your work with the IMO to limit global shipping emissions.
Greenland ice has continued its long-term decline, losing an average of 278 gigatons a year.
We tried to organise an interview.
Permafrost is melting, and so releasing methane, a potent greenhouse gas.
In the next decade, the IMO is doing almost nothing to limit shipping emissions.
I have to leave now.
Is it possible that we can talk to you about this, Mr. Lim?
Beyond announcements, all must pass a credibility test. Let me take one example, the example of shipping.
I'm working with Expresso and SIC, and we tried to get an interview.
SIC, what does that stand for?
It's the Portuguese broadcaster. Portuguese.
We need to see enforceable regulatory and fiscal steps so that the shipping industry can deliver its commitments.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
I understand point. Now that everybody much aware of the climate change issues, we're ambitious. Sometimes, for time being, IMO, we have 174 member states. In a way, we have to reach a certain agreement.
How
so that's why I cannot say, I can say more. But you have to know, nowadays, thanks to the climate change Paris Agreement, everybody knows about it. Everyone knows about that. But there are some different views in terms of how to handle. Now, much better.
You say children shouldn't worry. You say, just leave this to us. We will fix this. We promise we won't let you down. Don't be so pessimistic.
Thank you, Mr. Lim.
I said your airport, I like it, but I cannot disclose all in my heart. I really appreciate that.
Great.
Maybe you can send a message to my office.
I will. I will. Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.
And then, nothing. Silence. Or something worse than silence. Empty words and promises which give the impression that sufficient action is being taken.